Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Chicken Box. We are right here. We're live broadcasting from the Afro American Newspapers Facebook page. 128 years of doing business, informing, inspiring, and educating our community. It is a hot topic tonight. Tonight. Look, I say good morning, good afternoon. I went through all the different time zones. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Peck. Before we get started, let's give a virtual hug to our DC editor, Misha Green. Welcome back to the Chicken Box, everybody. Um, and Dr. Draper, always a pleasure to have you on as well.
Always a pleasure to be here, Impeccable. Misha Green, we are so glad to see you today.
I am so happy to be back on the box, and I have missed you all so much. This is like my favorite time of the week and day, so I've missed it so much, but I'm happy to be back.
Absolutely. This week, we're talking about black people versus eating black. I know you can go a lot of ways with that. This is our We're Still Here edition, and we're talking about food, y'all. So keep your mind straight, okay? Black people versus eating black. No Jeffrey Dahmers out here. No, none of that kind of stuff. We're talking about food, y'all. We talking about black business. We talking about they try to give us a week, Black Restaurant Week. The Afro has proclaimed that it's Black Restaurant Year. And so we're going to stamp that in. We have a special guest. I'm going to let Misha Green introduce our guest today and bring him on. He is on location. He's telling us about the topography that's changing all over the land, but especially here in the nation's capital. Let's welcome Tate. Tate, are you with us?
Yes, sir. How you doing, big brother?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time
and
zone
my
you're on.
sisters and the queens. How are you all, queens?
We're good, Chef Tate. Good to see you.
Great to
I'm
see you,
honored
Chef
to be
Tate.
here. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to chat with you all.
Misha?
Thank you. Yes, so everybody, Chef Tate, you guys may have seen him in some of our Afro coverage over the past. He is the founder of Inspire DMV LLC. He also is the co-founder of DMV Black Restaurant Week. And he does a lot for the community. He does a lot for other people, but he also is making sure that there's education about how we can support the Black community and Black culinary entrepreneurs in the DMV and beyond. And DMV Black Restaurant Week is not, and we'll let him tell you all about it, but I want y'all to know DMV Black Restaurant Week is not just about where to get good food, but there's a whole lot of education portion to it. There's panels, there discussions on how we can ensure that we're supporting Black entrepreneurs in the culinary field and beyond. So without further ado, we welcome you, Chef Tate. Thank you for being on the Chicken Box today.
Thank you all for having me.
I think I might be hungry, y'all, because I forgot. I represent the Gen Xers. Dr. Draper represents.
I represent JC, but really today I'm representing baby boomers.
JC is not a code, but if you got it, you got it anyway. Misha Green.
I love it, Dr. Draper. I'm stealing that from you. But today we are also representing the millennials out here, or as I like to say, millennial boomers. And I have to give a special shout out. We have next month will be totally dedicated to Black music. But today is Stevie Wonder's birthday. And so I had to rock my Stevie shirt today. Happy birthday to Stevie Wonder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Tate, help me
Yes,
out.
sir.
I'm feeling you. Where you gonna fall in, brother?
Oh, brother, I'm a blend of them all. You know, I'm third of 10 brothers and sisters, so I'm like right there.
He said 10
Yeah,
brothers and sisters.
I'm
Welcome.
third. Yes, mom and dad, we are full of love, so I'm right there.
And glad to have you on the show. Represent.
I'm curious, Chef Tate. How did you get? I mean, 10 brothers and sisters, but what led you to the business that you're in? Tell us a little
Well,
bit.
you see, my mom had us cooking for each other since I can, stand and reach the counter. So I've been cooking all my life. You know, my granddad was one of the first Black chefs to work for Marriott, starting at the Hot Shots. here in Washington D.C. And so I grew up understanding that I had a knack for cooking. You know, when you got 10 brothers and sisters, the one who made the food, I get to know what part is going to taste the best. So when we sit down at the dinner table, so I was always inspired to work and be a part of something that makes everybody feels better, and nothing like a good plate of food that you can share with your loved ones.
So we are actually in DMV Black Restaurant Week, I was told. Do you guys know that this exists if you're in the DMV area? If you don't, you do now. Hit the share button, y'all. We need to share what we're doing with other people because somebody today needs to know that DMV Black Restaurant Week exists. This is Black people versus eating Black. Do you search out Black-owned restaurants when you travel, when you're in your own city? What do you do? Everybody, we have welcomed Chef Tate to the Chicken Box, and this is where we speak our truth, we dispel stereotypes, and we bring light to darkness. And if you're from Baltimore, well, you're close enough, Chef. You know what a Chicken Box is, I'm sure, right?
Of course I do. Come
All
on
right.
now.
That's 4 wings and fries, my brother. Well, but if you're not from Baltimore, you're in another country, Africa, or you just never been to the Baltimore area, that is our staple kind of thing, along with a half and half, which some people call an Arnold Palmer. But the Chicken Box here is where you get to get on this box and speak your truth, whatever your truth is. And we're talking about Black-owned restaurants and taking our money and spending it with Black-owned establishments. So we're going to get into the conversation today. Let's just get 30 seconds on the box, everybody. We'll start with you, Misha, since you've been gone so long. What's your feeling about Black-owned restaurants?
Well, I have to say Black-owned restaurants has been something that my parents have pushed since I can remember. We were going out of our way to support Black culinary entrepreneurs. And so the fact that we are now talking about this today is really exciting for me because I'm getting to learn a bit more of the history behind Black-owned restaurants, where they've played a role and how they've played a role in the Black community. And I'm hoping that we can talk about this far beyond a trend of supporting Black. Right now we're in a phase of buying Black. I love this week's topic of eating Black, but I think it needs to be something that we're talking about, as you say, Kevin, so eloquently, all year long. And so I really, really am excited about this conversation. I think it's really important to support Black entrepreneurs, particularly all Black entrepreneurs, but since we're talking restaurants in the culinary field. And so, yeah, I'm just excited.
You look hungry. I think you really look hungry. You got excited and hungry at the same time.
Yeah, I have not eaten today. And y'all know, I didn't clarify this, but for those that know and have seen me in a couple lives, I am still broadcasting from Chicago right now. So I'm also an hour behind.
Oh, okay. Is that what the millennials do? I think all the millennials are out behind somewhere. Somehow. Anyway,
don't play with my generation.
But you're in a great food city also too. Nothing like Chicago cuisine.
Oh, for sure. And in terms of Black-owned restaurants, I mean, Chicago is where it's at in terms of it. When I was doing my research, I guess because of Google knowing where my location, it came up with like 30 Black-owned restaurants in Chicago alone. So
my business partner, Dr. Tucker. My business partner, Dr. Tucker, is from Chicago. She's a homegirl.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, of course, again, guys, make sure you go back and check out some of our articles on DMV Black Restaurant Week. In the past, we interviewed Dr. Tucker, I guess maybe a year or two ago. Carl Thomas wrote that story, one of our amazing writers on the DC team. So make sure you check out the whole DMV Black Restaurant Week team.
Thank you, sister.
You was on the box. We know we missed you, Misha. That was supposed to be 30 seconds on the box. Dr. Draper.
First, I want to give a shout out to my millennial friends. We need the millennials to help keep us relevant and to help keep us young. And so thank you, Misha. Secondly, in terms of your question, I always look for a Black-owned restaurant. Now, I also understand there are Black-owned franchises that we don't think about sometimes, and those brothers and sisters also need our support. Once when we check those out as well, for those of us who do the fast food chains and things like that. But personally, I'm looking for the Black-owned restaurant where I can get food that I can recognize, no food that I know is going to be cooked right. Now, sometimes, Chef Tate, I got to go in and say, hold certain things, hold the salt for me, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Because we tend to be a little heavy on that, but I'm intentional about that. I'm intentional about looking for Black-owned eating establishments.
How about you, Chef Tate?
Well, yes. So growing up, a lot of us realized that our first Black restaurant, other than grandma's table or mama's table, is our religious communities. So I grew up in the Nation of Islam, and I grew up eating the food right out the kitchen, and like my children also grew up at Metropolitan AME Church here in DC. That kitchen is so much a part of the church experience. So for a lot of us, our first restaurant away from home has been our religious communities, our churches. And there's so many of our chefs have got a lot of our crafts. So whenever I go to a city, not only am I looking for, what is the historical religious community, and is their kitchen open? Because I'm gonna get some authentic cuisine from that church kitchen. But I also know that the food is the way for us to explore the culture in that city while we dine. So I'm always looking to explore our communities through food and the people who make the food, the makers.
Thanks, Chef Tate. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box broadcast on the Afro American newspaper. If you are seeing us on Facebook, hit the share button. That's the little arrow that leans to the side. And we're talking about Black people versus eating Black. While the Afro is doing a special edition, we're still here on Black food this month. So the whole concentration this month is all about Black food, how we do it, how we put our foot in it, whatever that means, how we put our elbow in it, how we just do what we do. Well, they're like, what's the measurements of that? I don't know. Just put a little bit of that. No, now and put a little bit more. That's not enough. Okay, but put more in. Okay, so that's the recipe sometimes. But we have some great cookbooks and things of that nature that will help us. And everybody doesn't really know how to cook. I don't know if it's being taught anymore, but I don't know where I'm going with that. But Dr. Draper, give us a quick a quick touch up on We're Still Here, our Black food edition.
Let me talk about We're Still Here in general. So what the Afro has done, or is doing, the entire 2021, this is new for us. We're taking 1 week a month and doing an entire edition on one topic. And so I am so excited about next week. Next week is going to be all about food. As Chef Tate said, food was important to us. We'll talk a little bit about the history later, but in the church, in our political gatherings, around our family tables. And there are all kinds of food. We're going to be talking, though, about some other aspects of food. And so I want to kick it over to Misha. Maybe Misha, tell us a little bit about some of the articles. I know we're looking at food deserts as well. So can you tell us about some of the things we're writing about? Every single page of the Afro is going to be about food. So eat before you read next week.
Definitely eat before you read. Oh, we have so many amazing articles. Attempting to pull up our exact lineup just so that you could get a full list. But you know what? Honestly, that might be too much for me.
As you pull it up, Misha, I'm a shout out while you pull it up. Elevation, thanks for hanging out. Lawrence, Lakia, Rachel from in Atlanta, Ernest Bailey, thanks for hanging out. Man, I always love when I see Elevation's name. It seems like you gotta go to a next level when you see a name like Elevation. Byron Deese, let's see who else. Chippy. We got a lot of people. Patrick hanging out with us. Man, y'all making me hungry. We hadn't even got into any food. But anyway, you find the list?
Yeah, I have found the list, but I also just want to let you guys know I can't give you too too much. But we're talking about some of the history of Black food, how the spirituality of food, and we have some guest contributors doing that. We're talking about, as Dr. Draper said, which is so important in our community and needs to continue to be talked about, food deserts, what those are, and how we can eradicate those issues in our communities. Vegetarianism, veganism, pescatarianism. We're talking about different holiday foods and how we celebrate, and how food is such a major part of these celebrations. We're talking about food particular to our regions. So Chef Tate is actually one of our special celebrity interviewees as we talk about DC food and what DC food what our DC food staples are important. And we're talking about Baltimore food staples. We're talking about Black owned restaurants. Oh my goodness, guys, I love my boss. We got a shout out Reverend Bullware, who just sent me the whole list again as as I was checking her email. But yeah, we have tons of things to talk about in this edition. So please make sure you check it out. It comes out next Thursday, and it just is a wealth of knowledge and information about Black food and how food is important to our culture. So make sure you check out the May edition of We're Still Here.
And somebody's asking how can they get it, and so we want to make sure you know how to get it. If you are a member of the Afro, and if you're not, go to afro.com and hit subscribe. If you're a member of the Afro, you're going to get it, right? Afro, go to afro.com, hit subscribe, become a member, get the digital edition. For these special editions, though, they look really, really good in print. I know for myself, I usually get a digital edition, but I think if you sign up, hope I'm not speaking out of term, I think if you sign up though today, you'll be in line to get your digital edition next week. You may even get your print edition depending on how fast we get your subscription in. So just wanted to say that I'm hungry too now, guys, and I ate.
Thank you. This is Black People versus Eating Black. We got the famous Chef Tate with us. Chef Tate and I were hanging out. He said he wanted to come down to location in DC so you could see how the neighborhoods are changing. Speak on that a little bit, Chef.
Yeah, and I wanna thank the paper and Brother Thomas that's always keeping us here in DC connected to the paper. The history and the brotherhood and the sisterhood that's connected to this paper is just amazing. So thank you. So yeah, I came down to 300 Riggs Road, which is a part of the DC area. People might call it kind of like Uptown, but we got this brand new Walmart, but we have a Kentucky Fried Chicken / Taco Bell, and being knocked down to make space for the new Chick-fil-A. That a lot of people don't know. We have a lot of Black-owned businesses that are buying franchises. We got this brand, and some of the franchises are I'm sorry. Some of the franchises are owned by groups of blacks coming together. But also on this corner, we have a housing development, Ridge Park, and these houses are starting at they say low 600s, but after you add the back deck and the fancy countertops, you're looking about 700,000. And right on the corner, you have Culture Coffee 2, which is a coffee shop that features Black artists and it's owned by a lady. We call her Young Season Spirit, but she drives every day to make sure her coffee shop opens. And so this is the history, so we as business owners have to understand that our community is changing. Miss Ali, who owns Ben's Chili Bowl, when we first started DMV Black Restaurant Week, told us that as our communities change, if we're not the owners of the properties on this land, because we don't own the land, if we're not the owners of the properties, a lot of businesses will go under. Now, this is before the whole COVID-19. She said that the number one reason why Ben's Chili Bowl is not only a staple here in DC, is because they own their property, they own their building. And so not only do they provide great customer service, a great staple ham smoke with chili, and lots of places for blacks to start their first job. There are a lot of people who come to Howard and they have worked their first jobs at Ben's Chili Bowl, but they were able to stay alive, not just because we go in there and patronize them, but because we have to own our buildings.
Amen. They also are featured on the Google commercial, nationwide, Ben's Chili Bowl, and we have written a lot about them. But you said something so key. We have to own the land.
Yes. Yep. You gotta own. You gotta own. Yes.
Absolutely. And we have some questions. Elevation. I see. I wish we could answer all those questions, but he wants to get into. Let me pick one. All right. What are the hurdles besides the lack of capital that prevents Black restaurants from becoming franchisees?
Well, that's the number one. Two things. One, we have to learn how to collaborate. DMV Black Restaurant Week whole theme this year again was the power of collaboration. Our churches and our mosque were examples of people coming together to build fantastic environments where we come back together. We can do the same thing in franchises. We can get together, other groups of people. It's very seldom do you find one individual starting a restaurant group. It's a couple of people coming together, sharing their resources, sharing their money and their relationships to buy a franchise, which is just a structured business that has you have a little bit better chance of surviving. But franchises go ups and down also. So to answer your question, learn to collaborate, bring resources because the money is out here. We spend a lot of money as African Americans, and we have a lot of knowledge and money, but a lot of us are trying to do it individually rather than trying to collaborate.
Absolutely. I hope that touched on your question because it's a total invasion, I should say, that we need to do in these communities. We need to invade these communities. We need to fix them up, right? We need to come and own the land, like you said, and we need to open businesses in our community so that we can circulate the dollar. And there's nothing wrong with the barbershop or the beauty salon, but outside of that, because we don't even own the beauty supply store, which is a whole nother show. Black people versus beauty supply shows of beauty supply stores. I think y'all mark that on the list because that's got to come up. But man, we got some people hanging out with us. We got stereotypes. Misha, what are you hearing out there on those digital streets about Black restaurants or eating Black?
So thank you for that question, and I want to let you guys know again, these are solely stereotypes, not necessarily opinions. No opinions endorsed by the Afro-American newspapers, but these are indeed stereotypes that were out there, and some of these you guys may have heard last week as well. But I think it's good to reiterate, particularly as we talk about eating Black. And so first, you're gonna get good food at Black restaurants. You're gonna have food with soul food influences at Black restaurants. Again, these are just stereotypes. Black restaurants always have time issues, such as late seating, long waits for seating, and long waits for food itself. Black restaurants run out of the top foods. Eating Black is often unhealthy. Eating Black is hard to access. Eating Black can be expensive. Then this is an interesting one I found. Either eating Black is either unhealthy or super healthy. Eating Black is a thing now because of the buy Black trend. And finally, Black owned restaurants have a hard time staying open.
Boom. Put in the chat if you've heard any of these stereotypes. Lawrence from California, we see you. If you're in the Northern California area, Lawrence he's transitioning from a truck to a brick and mortar. He needs more space. So he can get, it comes a time when you need more space. It was, I went to some city that had a food truck depot, which is kind of a cool kind of place. Everybody pulled their food truck into the depot. And when they backed their truck up and went inside, they had kind of a bigger space to operate and shared kitchens and things like that. I don't know if there are any other places. I think this might have been in Memphis, Tate, but I'm not sure.
We have a lot of, so shared kitchen spaces are really fantastic in the city. But one of the things that we were able to do at Metropolitan AME Church is to open up the shared kitchen, the church kitchen, so that there were 5 different caterers who came through a training program. So DMV and Black Restaurant Week linked up with Dream Out Loud, which is another organization that is doing urban farming and eradicating. We don't just say food deserts, but we say food apartheid because our communities were designed to not have the necessary food that we need to sustain our lifestyle. And so we're showing churches how that they can redirect their church kitchens so that they can provide ample space for the businesses who are needed, because it takes about $1 million plus to open up a restaurant in the nation's capital. You're not looking at securing the space, putting all the equipment inside, as well as just getting it off the ground. That's a really big leap for even people with real money. So we're showing people how to utilize the resources. There's a lot of training that that our states have to support people before you spend grandma's money that she left you to go into this food game, because you don't want to go in by yourself, and you don't want to go in there with only your money, and you don't want to go in there believing that because you can cook some good macaroni and cheese that you can call yourself a chef. Training is so important for establishing proper business protocols so that you can sustain your business past, the dreaded 5 years, because a lot of businesses don't even make it to the 5 years. They can't get past the 18 months.
Chef, you are right on point, but somebody in the matrix does not want us to get this information, and they have made your screen look like an old television that went off at late at night. But your audio is,
Uh-oh.
you might have to go out
Okay.
and come back in. This information must be hot, y'all. Welcome to the Chicken Box. Launch, Chippy, Octavia still hanging out with us. The chef will be right back. He's on location. He wanted to come show us how it's changed $1 million, guys, in DC downtown to really get something started. That really seems, like a big leap. Chef Tate, they can't
All
hold
right.
it, man. See, that's the thing about black businesses. You get the no, you don't get the loan, you don't get the capital, but you keep going. You keep coming back.
Brother, I am so happy because I want you all to see we got these huge buildings, and the bottom of these buildings you have your Walmarts, right? And you just don't realize that in these design communities that are going up, they're giving so many of these franchises tax credits to open up these buildings, and we are boxinizing our community. So you got these boxes on top of boxes, and then we build these small restaurants on the bottom of it. And these restaurants are not a lot of times are not able to sustain themselves because the rent factors. We're not even going into the restaurants understanding how to negotiate the rent for, for the space that we're trying to sustain. So a lot of times we're not even in a situation where we can ever own a building because we are permanent renters, because we didn't capture the dirt, we didn't capture the old building before the development happened in the community. This is why we have to search out for black businesses no matter where they are, and provide them the support they need to sustain. And the black business owner, Culture Coffee, what she does and what we are striving to teach business to do is share your space. So once you get your space open, identify what other businesses that you can provide space, shelf space, floor space, event space, have multiple streams of revenue coming into your business that will also not only sustain you, but now we're going to share customers. Not only do we share space, now we share customers, we share resources. And by doing this, we as African Americans can compete on a fairer level, because the level we didn't start out fair, but when we come together, we kind of rise together. When we don't, we wind up realizing we fall by ourselves and we have no one to blame, because no one is there when you're falling. People are around you when you're looking good, but when you're falling, I've seen it happen so many times. You can't call your mama, you can't call your best friend, and your business is going under, and you don't know who to start, where to start. But start with collaborating up at the beginning and make it part of your business model to help others as you grow.
Speak on it.
I love it, Chef Tate. Let me ask you something. 3 or 4 times you said something about training. Can you
Yes.
speak about where people can get that training?
Okay. Well, your U.S. Department of Small Local Business, they have so many online training processes. They have core. The Washington Urban League and the urban leagues throughout the country have training. Please connect up to your urban league, no matter what state you're in. The urban leagues are focusing with Pepsi to provide some specific training that our restaurant businesses are going to need, because the margins are so small that if you're not calculating your recipe properly, and making sure your staff understands that they can't add their grandmama's recipe to it, your margins are going to change so drastically. So training is so important.
Absolutely. So
There you have it.
before we get into the history of Black-owned restaurants, what would you say? What are those margins like? I've always heard about 30% profit. Is that still is that high?
Lower than 30% now, because the cost of doing business, in some of our in some of our negotiations with these rents to be in these fancy buildings that we were talking about, the rent itself is crazy. And then you add on the equipment you need and all the state labor laws. So now I got to pay this much money to this many people because because I just can't hire my cousin, because my cousin he wants the same rate as everybody else. So the margins are really have shrunken, and you want to make sure you practice the proper business, because your cousin will report you for not doing taxes, because he wants his tax money at the end of the year. So that, don't think that you can pay him under the cover. That just stop doing chicken business. We got to do real business and treat people that way. The margins are smaller, which is going to make you have to do better business.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like we should go into the real estate development business first and get some buildings before the rent skyrockets, right? And then put the businesses and partner on that.
And you know what's so funny?
You have offline, Chef Tate.
Okay, I would love to talk to you. You have a lot of developers. You have a lot of African American developers, and that Black Restaurant Week, we are showing people how to collaborate. If the brother has a developer, if the brother is a part, or the sister is a part of the development, and you're part of a restaurant group that you've come together, your AKA sisters or Alpha brothers or whatever have come together, and you realize that now collectively you can go and offer this Black developer fair market price, because we actually have Blue Sky Development, which is a brother, some other people who own these properties. We have to do our research. And Sister Doctor, I'll be honored to just sit down and learn more and see what we can do to help uplift some more businesses.
Okay, we have a building that we're developing, and we're looking for tenants. So I want to talk to you about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, that's some backroom stuff. So that's what happens when you network, y'all. You got to network. That's what happens when you get information. You got to open your mouth if you have a business. And guys, when people say, and I don't know how many other African Americans feel this, you say you open for business, you wrote a book. Your friends, the people who say they with you, they're not usually with you. Not when it comes to supporting you. They talk a good game, and a lot of times they seem to be genuinely happy, but inside it's a lot of hate going on, and that haterness or that haterism that goes on stops us from supporting one another sometimes. And sometimes you just can't and then but the shoe goes the other way too. Like just because you're Black, if it's not a good product, you know what I mean, and you don't offer good service or good value, don't get mad at us because we don't support. So it goes both ways. But we're saying take a look at your brother and sister and this Black dollar in this community before you take it, and then learn how to correct and love. I think we said on our last show, have some grace, because we're so quick to get upset with each other when just a little thing is off that a person might be working on or might not know. They might have all the rest of it together, but they might need to have another person in front dealing with the public because they don't have, they don't have those customer service, or that's not their gifting to be in front of people. But I don't know where I went with that. The Afro's been around for 128 years, y'all. Welcome to Black People versus Eating Black, which we should always eat Black. And Dr. Draper, give us the history from the Afro archives or from wherever you gathered this research. I hope it's the archive on Black-owned restaurants. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. Y'all know I get on mute intentionally so I can do this commercial break. That if you go to theafromall.com, there's no shame in that. You can get this mug that reminds all of us when we're on mute. Okay, it comes in two sizes. It's a small size, but there's also a larger size. That's theafromall.com. Okay, now let me do what you asked me to do, which is
I got to get that mug. I have to get that mug.
Okay, Chef Tate, you're our guest today. I don't know if Dana is listening, but you give us your mailing address offline. We're going to gift you a mug.
Thank
Okay.
you. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Thank you
I
for
love
getting
it.
out. Yeah, I love it as well. Okay, let me talk a little bit. So Chef Tate lifted up one of the historical facts is that we came around the church table, the church kitchen table, right? That was one of our places that we gathered for food regularly and still gather. And so Black-owned restaurants were like only second to Black churches, a haven of source and strength to go forward in the 1960s for struggle for civil rights. See, Black restaurants were a safe place where you could meet without worrying about white eavesdropping. I mean, we weren't welcome in their restaurants, and certainly they couldn't slip into ours, right? And so um, many Black-owned restaurants were located also near historically Black colleges. We already mentioned Ben's Chili Bowl near Howard University, and that served as sources for the student protesters, student employment, and there again, that was a place where you could get a lot of customers. Now, back in the day, Black people, this is history, did not eat out the way we do now. But when we went out, we got a shrimp sandwich or an oyster sandwich. But as more Black women found work as teachers and other professions, and Black men, were already outside of the home working, by the 60s, according to our historical research, folk were starting to just go out for dinner. And that was a special thing to do. Not like now, now people go out every day almost. But when we went out for dinner historically, that was because it was somebody's birthday. And so now eating Black is pushed through food apps. Eat Okra or Ebon Eats, that's EBON Eats. And Grubhub and Uber Eats, they even showcase Black-owned restaurants. And so that's a little bit of the background. We didn't have all the Black-owned restaurants that we have now, but the ones that we did have, those were our special go-to places.
Yeah, and it's so important to when we did a thing called Taste of Ward 7 this past weekend, and there's some brothers called the Fusion Grill over in Ward 7 off of 7th Avenue, Nanny Hallenborough Avenue. We all know who she was. This brother and his friends graduated from high school, H.D. Woodson. They work here in D.C. government. They opened a restaurant, and he said it's nothing like his graduating elementary class students. The parents bringing their children to his restaurants, having some strip and grits. So that experience not only generates that dollar in our community, but it also stems a sense of pride that has to be brought back into our community, because it's harder to, hurt somebody that you just got finished having dinner with in a Black establishment. It's something about bringing that food brings the family together, and not only make sure that, my daughter has a place to work because my best friend's restaurant is open. And when she comes home from college, she knows she's going to be behind that counter, because it's a stressful position to be as a business owner. So we got to understand that it isn't for everybody. And so when you walk into these restaurants, like you said, brother, let's walk in with that compassion of love and realizing that we need to pay the price. Don't go in there and say, well, can I just get one French fry and a half a piece of, half a piece of chicken because I only got $1. We got to be able to go into our restaurants and pay the price, because you're not just paying for the food that you're eating, you're paying for the legacy that we all need to survive and stay and exist in our communities.
Thank you very much. And for good service, y'all, tip. I don't know if y'all
Yes.
know, and Tate, I don't know if you've heard this before, but I heard the tip to ensure promptness. So back in the day, they used to tip in advance to make sure that they got taken care of well. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Our waiters, they don't make a lot of money except on tips, right? So just think about how you sow into other people, and when you circulate that dollar, it's going to come back. You know what I mean? So if you're going to spend it, go spend it well, and go spend it when you can with a Black-owned restaurant. So you are the founder of DMV's Black-owned Restaurant Week. Tell us.
Co-founder. Don't get me in trouble. I have two powerful sisters.
Okay. Co-founder, I got it. Listen, I got your agreement together, your LLC and all of that stuff. No matter we don't want no stuff here, Afro. Okay. So tell us, what was your vision for that? And is it just for DC or do you have further vision for the whole world?
Thank you for asking. I was a restaurant owner for 20 years on H Street. So H Street in DC is a historical community that changed drastically. And so my business was providing food for charter schools, government agencies, as well as just anyone who can walk in and get a fair price because we understood that our community had a desert environment even back then. So DMV Black Restaurant was developed to not only promote the businesses that could, because we need promotion. We could not afford radio. We could not afford, I know our black papers needed to advertise more than just Tate's business. So we could not afford the type of radio and TV advertisement. So my partners and I, we came together because we knew like my restaurant went under when the development changed because I did not own my building. And when the developers said they was going to knock it down, it was only 8 million to buy it. I didn't have the money to buy it. I didn't want the same thing to happen to other businesses. My partner, Dr. Tucker, is an educator. She understood coming from corporate, and my other partner, AJ, also coming from the beverage, that we needed to provide training on top of advertisement, and we needed to demyth some of the belief that we were having about dining while black or eating at black experiences. So this is why our restaurant week not only promotes collectively over 100 black owned businesses, we also promote caterers as well as food trucks. We also do training. We partnered up with Dream Out Loud and provided training for the last 3 years, whole from writing your business plan to getting you the money from Life Assets to get you started, connecting you to Wakefield. So we understood that there's an ecosystem of training to show these businesses how to collaborate. So if you have a good smoothie, this person has a good fried chicken. Y'all collectively can pull your resources together with microloan money and open up a food truck, not a business, and then open up the brick and mortar. So we are now launching with our brothers and sisters in Virginia, because we do DMV. We're going all the way down to Richmond. And we're going to be in Richmond Juneteenth, in Fredericksburg Juneteenth. And we're going to begin to show that we have to collaborate not only neighborhood to neighborhood, teaching them how to have stronger customization strategies. We have to meet our customers using technology techniques, and we have to sustain those relationships. COVID showed us that when the doors close, you still got to have communication with your customers. So you have to use technology to do that. So in growing DMV Black Restaurant Week, we want to continue to find other corporate partners like Pepsi, some other companies, to be able to make a direct line to those small businesses that are in there behind the fryer, but they also need to know the directors of, the National Restaurant Association, which is a partner with us. The National Restaurant RAMW, we work with RAMW, making sure that every restaurant gets 3 years of free membership. And so we partner with other larger organizations to provide the resources and services that our businesses they don't have the money. And then sometimes they're so busy, they don't even know that they're missing it. We make that connection so that they don't have to be by themselves. Together, we're stronger.
Right. Collaboration is power, and information is absolutely power in this day and age. As fast as it moves, the Afro has been informing, educating, and inspiring for over 128 years, not just in the legacy print edition, but we online, y'all. We've been online. We had a .com before USA Today, right? Somebody at GoDaddy was like, "Where'd you get that from?" I'm like, we made it up anyway. Afro.com. Go ahead and listen. But I'm saying that to say this: we have facts in our archives that are amazing, that pretty much parallel. They don't parallel with our topic, but we like to look back at what was happening at this time in history in our archives. And Misha Green, what Afro fact can you share with us this week?
Thank you, Kevin. Before I even go into the Afro fact, I did want to quickly add that it's so interesting going back in the Afro archives because it shows the trend of eating out and supporting Black restaurants, even in our archive. I did not find a good one for this week in particular, but a couple weeks ago, I remember I shared with you all about how we had an article about African Americans in Baltimore being angry that that certain restaurants were still segregated, right? So these were not Black-owned restaurants, but just the fact that we were talking about this in the late 1950s and early 60s shows the sort of trajectory of African Americans eating out and caring about these issues. So I wanted to make that known. But without further ado, let me share this week's Afro Fact. This week's Afro Fact is inspired by the May 10th, 1930 edition, when the headline read, "Roosevelt's Views on Negroes Revealed in a Letter Just Published." The article explains that Theodore Roosevelt wrote a letter to his friend and novelist, Owen Wister, saying that he doubted whether or not he should have invited Booker T. Washington to a White House dinner. These letters and musings were in Wister's novel, My Friendship with Roosevelt. He also wrote, "Now, as to the Negroes, I entirely agree with you as a race, and in the mass, they are altogether inferior to the whites." That was our president, and that's this week's Afro Fact.
What was that last line again? They are all. Why'd you make that face when you said that?
Altogether inferior to the whites, because we know it ain't true.
Never been.
Absolutely, and that's the game, y'all. They tried to keep us in this pocket, and they try to even poison our own mindsets to think that we are inferior, right? We get so used to the word lack sometimes that when abundance comes our way, we want to squeeze back to lack. Well, I think that's too big for me. You got to get thinking bigger, because the lack mentality is holding us back from growing our communities, growing our dollars. But first, we got to grow our mindset. So that's why we say the information has to change. Tate, jump in. I see.
Brother, you. So the sister who owns Culture Coffee too, she's pulled me to the side where us brothers and sisters have come into her establishment and say, "It looks too good in here. Is it Black owned?" We have to literally change to what we think our Black businesses should look like. We come in with this bias already, and that sometimes that bias is like a bad taste before you even get the chance to feel the food. So I'm glad you said that, because we have to change the conditioning that we have been under by other people to know that we all deserve excellence. We deserve to serve it because we can, and we deserve to receive it because we're paying our money for it. So thank you, brother, for saying that.
Boom. This is the Chicken Box, y'all. It's getting near the end. Our hour is ending, but our work is not ending at all. I am thinking it's another big company that begins with an A, like the Afro, and they are going into these cities and they are buying these old properties, right? They're putting retail at the bottom of it, and they're putting housing at the top. It begins with the A, but the Afro, along with some of our Black business leaders, we need to collaborate and begin to go in these cities and get these big areas or buildings and put our Black businesses at the bottom, and we put our other businesses or our living spaces at the top, and we need to begin to claim different parts of the city so that we know when we come into certain cities, it don't have to be Whole Foods, it could be Afro Foods. I don't know what it don't have to, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to. We have to change the narrative for ourselves and not always look for another community to do something. We have enough money when we come together collectively to begin to do these things. You got this crowdfunding, you got all of these RETs, so we got all of these things that people are pooling their money together, and you got money that you don't even know what happened last week. If you think about it, without looking on your bank balance, you don't know where the money went last week, and that little bit of money could probably come together and really give us some kind of infrastructure to start something. I don't even know what our largest African American owned food chain is now.
Yes. You want to think of what Thompson Hospitality has done. Thompson, who also supports DMV Black Restaurant Week, and he supports it not only with giving us access to his staff who have provide training, he also sets a standard of excellence that we could provide food service in so many ways. So DMV Black Restaurant Week is not just about the brick and mortar. We provide training for caterers. We show people how to go out to government contractors. My company received my first $5.8 million contract providing food for CSOSAs because someone taught me how to write the contract. I could do the food because we were doing contract with charter schools, but someone else taught me how to write the contract. We have to teach these businesses how to go after these multi-million-dollar contracts so that they can not only sustain their business, but they can also sustain this culture of employing and empowering our persons that need to be sustained in our community. Because we have to sustain more than just our Black hair products and our food. We have a community that needs us to make sure our money comes back into our community. Like what you all are doing with this paper.
We could boycott these beauty supply. Why am I on that? My hair is going, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We could boycott them because listen, they don't really care about us. Even you can just feel the way they treat you when you go inside these beauty shops in our neighborhood. But since they control the supply chain, you know what I mean? Unless you're gonna get a Korean partner who's gonna be your front, they ain't gonna let you get the products. So we got to make our own products.
DMV Black Restaurant Week is also free. We want anyone to register. DMV Black Restaurant Week is free. We do not charge anybody to have all of this plethora of information and support is at no cost. And if anybody wants to collaborate or need to have resources, the Washington Urban Lead is there, and Wakefield and all these other organizations. Even Prince George's County has a lot of support out there, and Arlington has a lot of support out there to help businesses, no matter what type of business you're in. So I'm just want to behoove people to get active. Don't wait for someone to look for you. You look for the resources you need to bring your dreams to life, because we're waiting for you to live your best life now. You only live once.
The grease is hot, y'all. This is the Chicken Box. We're about to get with the final words. Thank you. Rachel brought us some history from Atlanta. I don't know if you've heard of Pascal's in Atlanta. That used to be a restaurant. Well, it still is a restaurant and a hotel, and I think they bought the whole block now. But if you're in Atlanta, visit Pascal's. The brunch is off the chain. You can't even really get in there. But anyway, enough of that. I'm getting hungry. We got the hot grease going on. We got our final words on this week's Chicken Box. We're still here. Get the Afro edition coming up. All about Black food, an entire edition, not just a little section, not just a story. The entire edition is about Black food. What's up, Jewel? We were looking for our Jules to come in and say something today. How are you? So, Nisha Green, you want to go first? Because since we missed you so much.
Sure, I will go first. First of all, I want to thank Chef Tate so much for everything you do in terms of empowering our community in many ways. And thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. I also want to shout out Culture Coffee too, another organization covered or another establishment covered by the Afro-American newspapers. I think that article was written by Lenore Atkins, who's another valuable part of our DC writing team. And so want to shout out Culture Coffee. Also, the owner allowed us to do, if you go way back into our video archives, an interview with some of the Black Lives Matter DC team, which now the person we interviewed is a part of a group called Harriet's Dream. So still furthering the mission of empowering Black people. And so we got to shout out Culture Coffee. And Chef Tate is in my neighborhood, so getting me super homesick right now. I grew up in the Riggs Park area. I still live in it to this day. So it's so happy to see you there. And thank you for reporting live today. We really, really thank you again. And I'm going to hop off the box because I'm really hungry. So if I talk about food, it's going to mess me up. But make sure you tune into all of our We're Still Here coverage for sure. But I know this edition is going to be great. So if you're not a member, go ahead and be a member so that you can for sure get this copy.
Chef Tate is now our digital on location food analyst. We're going to call you analyst.
Anytime you need me, brother. Anytime you need me.
All right, Dr. Draper.
Thank you, Chef Tate. I want to echo what Misha said. Listen to our Facebook viewers. I'm so glad you're here today. Our Black businesses did not grow during the pandemic, not really in terms of numbers. And so there's been a decline in African American business owners. Restaurants suffered during this. Only the strong survived, but we had so many more. So I want to encourage us. Let's support our Black-owned restaurants. Let's make sure that our schools are teaching the right things so the young people who have this interest can be right there in line. Because Chef Tate didn't share his story, but he did say he was one of 10 around his mama's table. And so he learned that way, but there are other ways that people can learn. Just a shout out to DMV Black Restaurant Week. Listen, we talked about Black businesses. If you took every Black business that makes the Black Enterprise Top 100 and put us all together, we don't make enough to reach the number one African American owned business that's on the Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 list. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of progress to do. I want to speak prophetically to Chef Tate. 5.8 million is just the beginning, right? Because if you take a 5.8 million contract, put those things, two of those, you still would be a small business. See, we think small micro business, but small business are like $100 million businesses. They're small. So we want to grow our businesses, especially in this area, because we know a lot about food. True, but we need to know a lot about business so we can leverage that knowledge, right? Collaborate, pool our resources. I'm ready to go in business with somebody, right? And really get that done. And a shout out to my son-in-law in Dallas who did that. And they have the only, if you're in the East Coast, you know about Rita's, but they have the only Rita's franchise down there in where they are in Arlington, Texas. And then not any for miles and miles. There's only one more, even within 100 miles of where they are. So find yourself a restaurant franchise or an independent one, collaborate with somebody, and let's pull our resources and not just make some money, but do some good for our community and leave a legacy for the generation that comes behind us.
I'm going to jump on before you, Chef.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The Afro used to have, and we're bringing it back, and maybe with your help, a cooking school. And they used to have demonstrations way before the Food Network. The Afro was doing the Afro cooking school. And we want to bring it back. And maybe during the restaurant week, it's time to inspire. We're so quick, we're so fast. We can't even sit down without our laptop, without our phone at the table. You know what I mean? Take some time. It's time to show these kids. The kids can't even cook toast. And you don't even cook it. You just push it down. Everything's moving so fast. And some of these great recipes and these skills that you guys learned as 10 children around the table and watching are being missed only because you just won't slow down for a second. I don't know why this popped in my head this morning. It used to be a commercial called "Have You Hugged Your Kid Today?" I was trying to look for it on YouTube. I don't know if you remember it. Anybody else remember "Have You Hugged Your Kid Today"? Put it in the chat. But anyway, it had a nice little melody. But it just made me think, have you showed your child how to make anything? Can they cook? Do they have one dish, since everybody's home, that they can just whip up and they can contribute? And I found that our children, or me and my wife, they like to cook or bake or do something, or get in there and put flour all over my floor, whatever they like to do. But they get in there and they have fun. And I think we need to really bring that back. So stay tuned, and maybe we can offline talk about this Afro cooking school being part of it, and because it's going to be a time when you get your vaccination. That's another talk anyway. Come on, y'all, stop playing. Get it for somebody else if you haven't got it. If you're not getting it for yourself, get it for somebody else who could have a weak immune system and be around you and you could infect. Anyway, that's my moment on the Chicken Box, the Afro Cooking School. We making a comeback. We going in the archives and we remixing these ideas that already worked. They worked already.
I started my culinary training in high school. And so my mom gave me basics and my grandparents gave me basics, but I started my culinary training in high school and went on. Even to this day, I connect myself with Chef Rock and other people. We've always done training. So in my restaurants, I've always hired and trained at least 100 young people a year. So we if we're not training tomorrow, we're dying today. And so we have to train our young people. I want you to understand that profit without impact is not real profitable. I want your businesses to start making sure you look around and you have impact in the community and what you're doing business. I don't care what color you are. Just because you're Black doesn't mean that that's enough in our communities. You have to be blackly active in making the community you do business in better. So the money has to impact more than just your wallet and your Mercedes. It has to make sure it reaches back generations behind you so that you will, when you get old, you have someone who able to help support you. So we want to know that DMV Black Restaurant is free. Connect with it. Check out All Bets. All Bets is a new thing that's coming also too. That's going to change the way we are bringing cash back into our communities and repurposing the dollar to establish businesses. And if you have some property, look for people to collaborate and open businesses in that property. Please don't let that property just sit because you want to collect some taxes on it. I'm here to serve, Chef Tate. You can follow me on tate.dmv. Anything I can do to help educate and train the next professionals, let's get active. Because if we're not teaching ourselves to grow, we're also helping ourselves to die. A lot of us are eating ourselves to death because we're not taking the time to do it properly.
Chef Tate, you ended on a boom. You dropped the spoon, the fork, and the knife. I think you dropped all the utensils. That's it. We can't eat to die. So we got to live, and we have to support each other, and we have to continue to share this information. Thank you, Misha Green,
Thank you,
Draper,
you
and
all,
for hanging out. Don't leave, Tate, because we're gonna work on this master plan. But as soon as we get off this live, I know everybody. We're gonna let y'all in on it. We're gonna let you come in on it. But anyway, until next week, thank you for tuning in to the Chicken Box, and support Black Restaurant Week in your area. I don't care where you are. Make it up. You don't have to have an official website. Just make it up and tell your friends. Right. Black Restaurant Week, y'all. We going out or we gonna order something. Talk to you later and have a